Since Theresa May called the snap election, I've been somewhat reluctant to get into UK politics. But since the general election campaigns are picking up again, I thought it might be worth delving into the depressing future Britain would have under the Conservative Party's strong and stable rule.
Strong and stable, 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 strong and stable.
The NHS is one of the many things the Tories aren't exactly a fan of. Since 1989, the NHS has slowly been gutted. Plenty of areas have been privatised, including GP surgeries, GP out-of-hours services, walk-in centres, urgent care and minor injury units, diagnostic services, maternity care, community nursing, ambulance services, prison health, non-emergency surgery, whole hospitals, and up to 40 other community services, including podiatry, diabetes and physiotherapy. That was only in 2013. In the past 2 years, they've made a deal worth over $780 million on paper, but closer to $1.2 billion in practice to privatise cancer and end-of-life services. The reason they're doing this? Because the system is not growing to meet the demand. I wonder why that is. This lack of funding has caused an increase in never events. Events that should have never happened. These can be potentially life-ending. Funding cuts have real consequences. Low quality of service is used to justify privatisation, which is then used to justify cutting funding, which then further justifies more privatisation. This is an economic sabotage on a system that would work fine if not continually gutted by the Tories. But it gets better. One thing the Tories have planned for us soon is what's being dubbed the dementia tax, where anyone with assets, which will include homes eventually, of over £100,000 will have to pay for their own social care, that otherwise would have been covered by the NHS. After facing significant backlash from this, Theresa May has allegedly backtracked on the issue. However, I think the media is actually wrong about this and is downplaying the severity of what May is doing here by calling it a U-turn. You see, May didn't take the policy back and say that it isn't happening anymore. She added in a caveat, that there would be a cap on how much someone has to pay for their social care. But she never actually clarified on what the cap would be, meaning she hasn't actually changed anything about the original policy. The media calling it a U-turn is making it look like the dementia tax is going away, when in actual fact there is absolutely no visible change to the policy, since the cap could be so high that it wouldn't actually change the costs for anyone affected by this. The cap on social care costs isn't the only thing May has refused to clarify on. She also refused to answer the question of whether or not more of the NHS would be sold off in trade deals with the US, not once.
In her forthcoming meeting with President Trump, she will be prepared to offer up for sacrifice the opportunity of American companies to come in and take over parts of our NHS or our public services. Will she assure the House that in any trade deal, none of those things will be offered up as a bargaining chip?
I'm pleased that I am able to meet President Trump so early in his administration. That is a sign of the strength of the special relationship between the United Kingdom and the United States of America, a special relationship on which he and I intend to build. But can I also say to the Leader of the Opposition, I am not afraid to speak frankly to a President of the United States.
But twice.
Will the Prime Minister tell President Trump that she is not prepared to lower our food and safety standards or to open health systems for privatisation? Or does she believe that this is a price worth paying for a UK-US trade deal?
Prime Minister!
We will be looking for a UK-US trade deal that improves trade between our two countries, that will bring prosperity and growth to this country, that will ensure that we can bring jobs to this country as well. And I can assure the Right Honourable Gentleman that in doing that, we will put UK interests and UK values first.
We know what the answer is. That's why she's not saying it. The National Healthcare Service is something that most people in the UK cannot afford to live without. So when you go to vote in June, remember who you're voting for. You may have noticed the change to my channel name. I thought Alternative Facts as a tongue-in-cheek jab at the Trump administration would be more fitting for the overtly political content I'm doing nowadays, and it also helps me distance myself from the online drama that's currently going on. As always, a massive thank you to my patrons Joe Snyder, Christopher Kamori, Dazafrak, Paul Twatson, AH, Jordan at the Screen, Armando Turan Bremont, Jezin, Chloe Adams, Frederick Gent, Adam Wallin, Joseph Schmidt, Ben Mozu, Horikawa Otan, Robert Law, Feral Kamichi, Violent Vegan, Thomas Hernandez, Paulos Tegegen, The Woolly Bumblebee, B, and Stefan Fabian. Patreon is currently my only source of income, so a massive thank you to all of you. And if you support this channel, it gives me a greater ability to justify spending less time on what appears to be a fruitless search for other work. So, just thank you again.